Jonathan with Gutter Guards Direct. Today I'm at a home in Canton, Ohio, where I've been asked to come out and take a look at the gutter situation. So I am looking behind me here at a leaf filter system that was installed on this house 18 years ago. And as you can see, there's a bunch of leaves and debris sitting on top. So stay tuned and I'll show you what's going on. So as you can see, there's a lot of leaves and debris sitting on top. There's pine needles, there's a small oak leaf there, and a variety of other things that have landed on top of the gutter guard and are sitting there. Obviously not all the screens are covered up, but as you go along, you'll see quite a bit are. If I look over that porch, that porch addition there, you're also going to see a bunch of stuff sitting on top of the gutters over there. You also see sunshine on the roof there, whereas where I'm standing is pretty well shaded. So if you look on the roof, there's a lot of debris sitting up there. And if you look on the gutter guard, you know, there's a good amount of debris sitting there. But as I do at home, when I'm showing you what's actually happening in the testing environment, if you come down to the face of the gutter, you can see there's just a ton of stuff across the face of the gutter here. Particularly bad kind of where I'm standing. And so that's an indication that as the debris comes down and it kind of gets pushed off by the water, it then comes around the face of the gutter and it sticks to the face of the gutter. And this stuff has been up here for quite a while. It's kind of plugged on top of that. Now you see if I move that out of the way, the screen itself is fine, but the problem is there's stuff sitting on top of it, and that's allowing the water to come off the top, curl around, and then it brings all this junk onto the face of the gutter here. And the homeowner told me, or her son told me, that he was up here in 2019. He thinks it's the last time that he cleaned off these gutters here, but you can see to what extent this is an issue. The reason I'm here, oh, by the way, there's some moss right here. Let me zoom in on that. There's moss forming on the screen itself. And she said that actually the reason I climbed up here is that she said in the past there's always been moss sitting on top of the screen. So clearly it takes a while for that to start growing. Here's some more right there. But she said at one point this was just completely covered up with moss from one end to the other. So I'm here because this is a problem, and a problem that she would like to fix. What I wanted to point out here is the gutter guard itself. So you can see how this has warped over time, and it's created a pocket in which whatever can get in there: birds, squirrels, leaves, mosquitoes, wasps. You can also see this screw head. It basically is barely sitting inside that plastic, so it's barely hanging on, which means that over time, where it was screwed in over here, as it warped, it literally popped the screw head out. It may have taken a while for that to happen. Same things occurred here, but the screw just itself hasn't fallen out of the screw hole that they had made in that system. So that tends to be a problem. Now here's a screw that's still screwed in. You tend to see it at the ends, so it's not such a big deal along the straight run, the majority of it, but once you get to the ends, that's where the product wants to curl up and just disconnects from the gutter below because of that warpage. This is Jonathan with Gutter Guards Direct. Today I am at a home in North Canton, Ohio, where we recently installed new gutters and gutter guards. So stay tuned and I'll show you what we did. I first visited this home probably 3 or 4 months ago, and when I came out, actually the homeowner had called me because she had a gutter guard on her house that was not working properly, and she thought that we were the ones who installed the gutter guard. So she had had the gutter guards installed, I think in like 2004 or 2005. So they'd been up there for many years and had gotten to the point that it was really becoming problematic for her. So she decided to take action, and she gave us a call, again thinking that we had done the work. As it turns out, it was not us. In fact, it was the LeafFilter system. So I recommended that she call LeafFilter. In fact, I was getting their phone number to give that to her, and then she asked if I'd be willing to come out and take a look at what the issues were and see if we could do anything with it. So when we came out, she had a 5-inch gutter with the LeafFilter system on it. And as you'll see as we walk around to the back here, there's a huge oak here on the left-hand side, which is actually not in her yard. So there's a bunch of oaks back there. I can't remember what the name of this tree is, but it kicks off little tassel type things. It kicks off berries. It's a very dirty tree. Maybe it might be some sort of a birch tree. So somebody out there will know. Here's the leaf on it, but it had when I was here in the late spring, early summer, it had a kind of a reddish purplish hue to it. So it's a very pretty tree, but as you can see on the ground here, there are a lot of leaves, and I'll take you up top, but it definitely deposited a lot of stuff onto the roof, branches, little balls or seeds or something. And that stuff was everywhere. And the gutters were not really doing what they were supposed to be doing. And the homeowner told me that she would get tremendous amounts of water along the wall here. And in a way, I think maybe she's cleaned this up since we've been out here. But you can see the color difference between where the brick mortar is. You know, for the first 4 or 5 courses, it's a much lighter shade, and she said that it would just continuously get wet here every time it rains. In fact, this is probably a relic of when that occurred, because there's no window well or anything there. It's just sitting there. So she said it was very wet, and now that it's very dry. So actually the Hosta probably aren't doing as well now that the new system is up there. But any rate, so let me climb up the ladder here and kind of show you what we did. So this tree right behind us here is kicking off a bunch of stuff. Now these are pine needles, and the pine tree, you can kind of see right here, there's 3 or 4 pine trees that sit immediately behind the property here on the right, and then there's even taller ones over there through those trees on the left. So she gets a lot of pine needles, obviously the oak next door, what's being kicked off this tree, and then over there, and I think that's a maple there. So she's getting pretty well hammered with stuff here. And one of the challenges with homes that have a relatively low sloped roof is that stuff sits on top of it. And if stuff sits on the gutter cover or in the gutter itself, it kind of builds up either on top of the gutter guard or inside the gutter, and then eventually works its way back up on the roof. So while you can see a bunch of stuff sitting up here, this is nothing compared to what we saw when we first showed up. If I recall, all this debris was well up the roof, and there was tons of it, not only sitting on top of the LeafFilter system, but sitting up on the roof as well. So even though you do see things sitting on top of the gutter screen right now, this stuff will shift off of there. It'll blow off, it'll wash off. But it definitely, you'll get some stuff sitting on top of it here and there. If you look over here, she's got this porch system, and it was built really close to the roof line. So we actually had to make a provision for that. I knew it was going to be cutting it close to try to put a 6-inch gutter on, because if you come over here, you'll see how the 6-inch gutter sits just a little bit below that. So what we ended up doing was we did 6-inch gutters everywhere except over that patio cover, and we put 5-inch back up there, and then we put the gutter guard up. So we essentially just made a modification in that one area, but we were able to make a pretty cohesive look from one end to the next and keep her in business in regards to that. And then the other thing, and I was just here taking a look at this, this is, if you look down at the ground, there's a bucket on the ground. It currently has no water in it, but she said this was one of her big problem areas, and prior to us doing what we did, she would get, basically this bucket would just continuously fill up. So in a good heavy rain, it would fill up 4 or 5 times, but she got this kind of constant dripping action happening here. And she was getting still a little bit of that dripping happening afterwards, but when I got here, the bucket had maybe an inch or so of water in it. So what I decided to do was put a little bit of a diverter up here, and what you'll see is there's this weird transition from kind of the main roof to the garage roof, and as a result, this roof is sitting up a little bit higher, and everything was kind of elevated in this corner. So my theory was that the water was coming down at such a rate that it wasn't, it was either coming off this edge, dripping from this edge and coming across, or it was coming off of here and not really able to transition that cleanly onto the screen. And so maybe in a heavy rain, the volume was such that it was just overwhelming the gutter guard at this point. But she said it was a relatively, just a slow drip there. She said maybe every 10 seconds or so she'd get a drip. But that was enough that she wanted us to come out and take a look at it. So what I decided to do was just create this little splash guard, if you will, kind of push it up, wedge it up towards the rake edge of the garage. So I notched it out, slid it over the shingles, and then we sealed it on the back side there. And then I put a little bit of caulk on the underside of that, on the metal here at the back of the gutter guard, and just put it out at a little bit of an angle. So as the water comes down, it'll minimize what will happen kind of in this, 10 or 12 inch area, and it'll kind of push everything this direction. So you can see the roof is a little wet because I've been testing it, and so far so good up here. Now I'm at the front of the house, so you can see there's a lot less stuff sitting up on the roof in terms of the leaves and debris. Still have some of the pine needles. We've got a little bit better perspective from this angle with that tree, that birch tree, the couple of oak trees. Out front we've got a maple, and then you have those really large white pine trees in the back, and another maple, and then over there a sycamore tree. So even though there's not much going on the front side, there's a whole lot going on the back side. That is west facing behind us, and they're in the backyard. So we're out on the east side here. I just wanted to show you this valley. Even though the valley's not very big, it's just a little kind of a gable here, decorative gable on the front of the house. We still put in a high flow screen. So I just wanted to give you kind of a perspective on the screen density. So you can see that high flow screen is a lot more porous than the traditional screen. So I'll just come over here and you can kind of see the comparison with the high flow screen on the left and the standard micromesh screen on the right. One, you can see the openings, the other one you cannot. They both have copper woven through the screen, So that is unique to the Master Shield system. But this is doing a very nice job. I mean, if you just kind of look at the high flow, you've got some of the remnants off these trees in the back. You can see the pine needles. You know, there's a few pine needles sitting on top of the screen here. And then you see a fair bit of shingle granule activity up there. So that's something that's bound to happen. But you see more stuff kind of sitting on the high flow screen because it's a more porous screen than you do on the standard screen to its right. And that's really because the standard screen has very little friction to it. This being a little bit more porous, it's just more likely that something is going to get stuck to it. You might get a few of those small granules through and just some really small debris, but nothing that would be of any real meaning or concern to you. And you can see how things are just kind of blowing around a little bit up there. So even though it might look like it's you know, in the screen, by and large it's just sitting on top of it, and it should shift off with a good breeze and or some rain. So there are two spots here on the front of the house where we have the high flow screen. Right here where I'm standing, and then if you go back over like the second panel in from the end, we also have high flow there just to catch any of the extra water that comes down that valley on the right side of that gable. If you like this video, hit the subscribe, like, and ding button, and you'll be notified the next time we upload any videos.